Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Thornton. If you're new here, I do all things Christian related, Christian content, sermons, motivational speaking, all the things, and I personally give my opinion on secular topics from a Christian perspective. And today, with that being said, I am giving my opinion on something that is circulating around right now. It's a member of a secretive Christian sect that is sentenced to 120 years in prison. And we can see why. Let me play this video for you and show you and give you my take on the matter.
So a huge development today after a year-long investigation that we took on after getting a number of tips about an under-the-radar Christian sect known as the 2x2 Church. And not only did we expose decades of child sexual abuse, but several of the leaders who were committing the crimes.
This is our first follow-up since our investigation aired, as one of the church elders is now headed to prison for the rest of his life.
For each count 1, 12 years in the Department of Corrections, count 6, 12 years in the Department of Corrections, and count 10, 12 years in the Department of Corrections.
Raymond Zwiefelhofer was a leader in the secretive and isolated 2x2 Church until earlier this fall. He was convicted of possessing child sexual abuse material.
There were 87 files that were determined to be child sexual abuse material, or sometimes known as child pornography. The 10 charged files were all depicting children under the age of 15.
Zwiefelhofer.
So you heard it. He is a former elder of a secretive Christian church that has been charged for multiple accounts of having child porn. And a little bit on him is that this article published on December 6th, and he is a leader and he is 61 years old of the Christian secretive 2x2 Christian sect. Like I mentioned, he is a former elder of the church, but he is now going to be sentenced to 120 years in prison because of what he has been caught with. The video states that 87 files of child SA porn was on possession with Raymond. He has 10 charges, and the charges are depicting that there are children under the age of 15 on these files. That is scary. That's a lot. And it's so crazy how so much is being exposed this year with the church. Like, it's not just secular things that are being exposed, like I've mentioned in my prior videos, but it is also the church. And the church is not being excused from that. The church as well is being exposed. And I find it by no coincidence that this case has come to the surface as well. And it said that this case has been watched for over a year. And they've been watching the members of the church. And so many SA cases have come out of this church and alleged cases, and finally they have caught someone who is guilty and being charged of such things. And many of you may know or may not know that it is illegal to actually possess and definitively know about things like this as child porn. He should not have it on possession. And each account, one count of having a file of child porn can get a person up to a minimum of 10 years in the state of Arizona. So he had 10 counts of these things. So it's gotten him up to 120 years. He might as well be in there for life. Throw away the key, because he had so much on hand that this is the charge he got. But many of you may not know about this church. It's a very secretive church, and not many people know about it, as the video stated, or have even heard about it. I've never heard about it ever. And it kind of sounds like the LDS or kind of Mormon vibes, stuff like that when you get deeper into the video. And this church has been alleged of a wild spread of SA in their church and ongoing cover-ups that they keep doing. They keep having people come up and say that they've been SA'd, but they continually cover it up to law enforcement, to the feds, whoever is coming up and saying they've been SA'd, they cover it up some way or somehow. And it's typical. Many people turn a blind eye to things like this and rather dismiss it, put it under the rug, than rather address it head on. And it is beauty to see that justice has been served, that someone from this church that have multiple accounts of alleged SA has finally been caught. A private investigator by the name of Cynthia Lyles, she is on this case and she is doing a very, very deep dive on the case. And she quotes and she says in the video that Raymond is one of most likely thousands, she says, not hundreds, not a few handfuls, but thousands of accounts of child SA and SA that has taken place. And it's really scary how much sometimes this happens within the confines of church and cult-like things. But this church sounds very cultish. Even if you listen through the video, it sounds very cult-like. And the procedures they have, the protocols they have, what they do, how they live with one another when they're not family or not relatives, or they think they're above the law. All these things are very cult-like in this specific Christian sect. But Raymond has been the first member to be convicted and sentenced to prison in the U.S. from this 2x2 Christian sect. And I'm sure many of the SA victims are pleased to hear that he is one of them that has gone down. And hopefully the FBI even said that the case will be continually ongoing. Just because they have convicted Raymond doesn't mean the case is going to stop or cease. And some members of this church say that there is a deep history and pattern of abuse. And it really has seemed like this has been going on for years and years and years. And it's sad to say that no one has sought justice. No one has been given justice for this type of act. But I'm glad to see that Raymond is getting the time he deserves because of the acts he's committing towards others and having this type of corn on him that is illegal. One guy mentions in the video that the 2x2 has become a breeding ground for SA offenders and pedophiles. That's scary. That's very alarming that it's such a culture for them to be okay with SA and be okay to touch minors and be okay to do these types of acts right in the middle of everybody or right amongst their leaders. And there's no accountability. There's no personal convictions. There's no one being held responsible for the acts that they're doing. And it's quite sad. It really makes me sad to see because I know that multiple people are abusing the church. And this is sometimes why people turn away from God, because you abuse them, you mistreat them, you harm them. So they have this interpretation that this is what God does. This is how God moves. This is how God would treat them personally, because you misrepresented God and used the name of God or used the name of Jesus to do and commit the crimes you're doing. When Jesus, God, does not approve of you doing these things. And you're taking the Lord's name in vain by covering up your misconduct and your irresponsible actions. So I'm very grateful and thankful that this man is going to prison where he belongs. He is probably using the Lord's name in vain. He's probably holding it against his members to do the things he's doing on behalf of the Lord, God, all these things that is not correct. And you're misrepresenting a holy God. A holy God would not do the things in the accounts that you're doing. So it does bring my heart joy to see that justice is being served even in the church. Because I do not believe that these church that has called them back, but all have denied that SA has been within this community. One guy mentioned in the video that all these types of institutions tend to think that they're above the law. Let me know if you think that cults think that they're above the law. Let me know in the comments. But I personally never have dealt with a cult. I've seen cult-like tendencies within church or religion and things like that. But I've never been so fully engulfed in a cult-like atmosphere or an actual cult itself. So if you have been, or if that's something you come from, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your experience. Many of these members of the 2x2 church said that they've never, and I emphasize never, felt protected. That's pretty scary. That's alarming, and that is disheartening to hear, that you don't even feel protected from your church, a place that you gather, a place that should be where God is, peaceful, holy, love. You don't feel protected. That says a lot about this church, about this 2x2 church. It may have not even just been a church, it was a cult. And cults are not designed to protect its members. Detectives have spoken to over a dozen victims, more than 30 states across the U.S., and they are ex-members, say that they have allegedly been SA'd by this church. Some of the church leaders knew about the allegations and yet did not want to report it, some of the victims say, and to authorities because the abusers wanted to keep working and they sent them to work in different states. But I want to turn to the video again at 6 minutes. A lady gives her testimony on exactly what happened to her while she was in this church. It is very graphic. So I do say that if you are triggered by such things, forward the video or you can click off now, but it is very graphic to what she says. So if you are sensitive to that or triggered by that, please do not continue listening or watching.
Sherry Autry says she was 14 when a worker named Steve Rose moved into her home.
So Steve Rose moves into your house. What happened?
So the first night, hey, Sherry, let's go down to the barn, tell scary stories, feed the dogs, and started kissing me.
What happened next?
It went from just kissing to him coming to my room at night. There was touching under the clothes. When we went to his room is when it was more explicit.
And then what?
He'd have me grab his penis. He'd be touching me everywhere, kissing me.
You were 14, he was 28.
I was a little girl. I hadn't started my period. There was nothing womanly about me.
Rose stayed in Sherry's home for 2 months. She says the abuse happened every day. It took 3 years before Sherry could get the courage to tell her parents about Steve Rose. And when she did, they immediately believed her. Rose later wrote a letter to his overseer admitting to the abuse.
I would like to say and make very clear, we did not have sexual intercourse. We did kiss and touch each other intimately. This did not happen with anyone else. I did not intend to cover this up, but I did not know how to handle it other than to leave the area and beg God to forgive me.
Members of the church leadership never reported Steve Rose's abuse to the police, but his overseer, Eldon Tenniswood, recognized the abuse in a letter he wrote to Rose, saying, "Remember, Stephen, at that time you were 28 years old and she was 14 years old, which would make what you did a felony."
So that is one of many incidents that have happened within this church. This lady goes on to say that she still to this day has not received justice, and that her alleged abuser has not owned up to what he's done to her. And it is really sad. Like she mentioned, she was only 14 years old, and this man came in to live with her in her home as she was a member of this church. And it's really sad how nothing about her was womanly. As she mentioned, she had no breast, she didn't start her period, and yet he wasted no time to abuse her very quickly and very early on. And to the point where leaders of the church knew about it, did not report it, and did not put him into authorities' hands. She does live in the state of California, where she has tried to find justice for this case and seek out justice for him to be convicted of the crimes that he's done. But the state of California has said that it falls out of the statutes of limitations for them. And that's really sad to say, that she may not see justice on this earth or this side of earth, but hopefully, and I pray that they all see justice when Judgment Day comes. And, their abusers may not own up to what they've done. They may not say sorry. They may continue doing the nasty things that they're doing. But I rest assured that they will see the judgment that they rightfully deserve by their Creator, by God, one day. And Sherry goes on to say that she will continue to share her story, because if she saves one SA victim, that it was enough for her, and what she went through was enough, because she wants to help others and share her story and helping others get out of the situations that they're in, and to let them know that they're not alone. Many of these victims feel like they're alone, or feel like it's only them that it's happened to. But this is more common than not, sadly. And I'm so thankful for a woman like Sherry that's coming out and sharing her story, as graphic as it is, as hard to hear as it is, that she is bold enough to shame the devil, to shame darkness, to shame the wickedness that is going on in the church, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, to let people know that you're not alone. And I pray that Sherry receives justice the way that the Lord would intend her to receive justice. But it's such a beautiful way to turn something around that's happened to her and help someone else. Because many of us and many people need help. That Sherry, the little 14-year-old girl that was crying out for help and wanted help, she is in turn being the help that she so rightfully wanted in that time. Let me know what you think about this case. Write your comments down. Let me hear what you have to say about the video. I will comment back my opinions and interact with you all. But I know this is a very hard case, but I'm very thankful for all the darkness that continues to come out to the light and that continues to be cleansed and exposed and bringing things to the public eye so there can be some sort of justice. If you like this type of content and you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification button, and you will receive a notification when I post new content. I post very regularly, so if you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button. But until then, I will see you all in my next video. Bye.